Ain't nothing comfortable about sitting on these rocks. I'm in a flathead prone area. My only downfall is I got sidetracked and I haven't got any fresh bait. My bait is 3-day-old on ice skipjack. When you're using cut bait for flatheads, the fresher the better. Have I caught flatheads on 3-day-old cut bait? Yes, I have, but they do seem to like a fresher bait. So it's not impossible. Maybe the likelihood of it has went down a little bit, but either way, it's what I've got, and I'm here. You've seen me make several videos at this same spot, and there's a reason for that. For one, it's flathead prone. Basically, there's a outside bend comes around that way, comes in front of me here. There's a deep scour hole on my right. There's a drop-off ledge where it goes from shallow to deep right in front of me. There's a huge bluff way over there with a 40-something foot deep hole. There is just good flathead and blue cat structure right here. Now, blue cat are movers. Sometimes of the year they'll be here, sometimes they won't. But if flatheads are here, and it's not just been fished to death, you need to fish it repeatedly to find out what's really down there. Flatheads don't typically move far from their home, especially the big ones. They get an area they like, that's where they live. Flatheads are the most inconsistent of the 3 large species of American catfish to catch. Channel cat are easy. Blue cat, if you know what they're doing, can be easy. Flatheads are their own animal, man. They're a different beast. I think one example of that was when I lived in a small river, Guyandotte River, up in Mingo County, West Virginia for several years. It was mostly trout and smallmouth waters. There were a few deeper holes in this, look like trout waters. You know, we're talking with 8 to maybe 10, 12 foot water, where the water kind of darkened up, it calmed out. And some of these holes had great big boulders or rocks in them. And there were some flatheads in this river. This river connected to the Ohio about 60 miles downriver. Either way, there were a few flatheads in this river. You know, most of them were in these separate holes. These holes could be 2 to 5 miles apart from each other going down the river. The holes typically weren't very big. So they typically were only 20 yards long. We're talking a river 10 yards wide. Well, I fished this one hole. They called it Bull Rock. It was only about a mile from the house. I fished this hole in October every night for about 5 days with live bluegills. I never caught a single fish. Now, I knew these flatheads were in there. All of a sudden, one night, I went down there with about 7 bluegills. When it got right about dark, I caught every flathead that I had a bluegill for. I had 7 flatheads landed in about 15 minutes time. The biggest one in that little creek was 26 pounds. But it shows you the nature of flatheads and how different they are than blues. There are times they feed heavy and feed almost on a daily basis. You know, like when they're coming off winter, they're hungry, they've been depleted all winter, they will feed a lot heavier, and they will move around some trying to feed. Well, once they've been doing that for a little while going into spring, you know, they got their fat stores back up, and they become a little tougher to catch. Typically, what makes them tougher to catch is they can eat such a big meal at one time, and the fact that they are not a moving fish. They don't burn calories. A blue cat moves and moves and moves, so it constantly has to feed to make up for that movement. A flathead lays. That's it. It finds structure, it lays till it's time to feed. So it can eat a whole lot less. So basically, a 25-pound flathead can go out here and swallow a 4-pound sucker and not eat again for 2 weeks. It's got plenty, you know. So when you're in a flathead hole, you need to fish it repeatedly to give you that opportunity at the different flatheads in there. I don't get the opportunity to fish the same places often. because of this YouTube channel. I have to keep moving, I have to keep it interesting, I have to keep going to different places. But now if it were just me, I'd sit here in this one spot all spring long, just to see what I pulled out of here. Yeah. That's not a bad fish. When you see me fight these fish, I've got a really stiff rod, but you'll see me pull in some big fish without a lot of bend in my rod. There he goes, there he goes. Once I know I have that fish hooked, I don't want to rip the hook out of the side of his mouth if it's just barely caught in there, you know. I don't know how good he's hooked. I believe that's one of them old flatheads right there. Good 30-pound class flathead on a big skipjack head. Yeah, there she is right there. Woo! Pretty fish, man. Quick picture. Knocked my camera around there. Anyway, flathead, man. 3-day-old skipjack. Oh. Alright people, I knocked the camera around while I was taking a picture of that fish and knocked my power cord out and the battery was low, so the camera cut off during the release. He swam off. I got everything plugged back in. So the current must have picked up because I can hear my clicker going off over there. I can see the river moving. They must have turned some gates on. But anyway, another good reason to fish the same spot is not just for flatheads but for blues. Now if it's a place that a blue would want to stay, like I say, it might not be good all year, but there might be certain times of the year, spring, could be the summer, could be the fall, that attracts big blue cats to that spot. You know, you got a hole out there, you know, something blue cats like, whatever, you know, structure. You know, some areas of the river ain't squat, man. They're just straight channel with no structure, same depth all the way through. Some areas are good. If you're in a good area that will hold fish, I'd fish it quite a bit just for experimentation purposes, man. Maybe do it for, you know, I fished places for 2 or 3 years when I got started. And after a while I learned, well, this place ain't much, you know, it only gets this or that, and some places are great, you know. Or I learned that some places are not great at this time of year, but they are great at this time of year. Just kind of how I develop my patterns. And there she is. Woo! Anyway, back to what I was saying about not horsing in the fish. Another reason I don't horse them in is because this bank is real rocky and it's got a drop off. And these fish will pull you real hard over them drop offs and rub your line real hard on these rocks. And the more tension you got on that fish while that line is rubbing back and forth on them rocks, the easier it can cut your line. So once I know I've got a hook set, as long as I feel I got control of the fish and he's staying close to me and he's not going to try to run me into something, I pretty much just work the fish easy to get him in, you know. Because I've pulled many a big fish in that were just barely whisker hooked, and you're thinking, man, just one little this or that fish would have been gone. So once I know I get the hook set, I've got good control of the fish, he's right in front of me, I don't feel like he's going to go down the river and swim me into something, I just be easy on him. A catch is a catch. If you rip the hook out of his mouth, it ain't a catch. Alright people, it's a weeknight, so I'm going to take off 9 o'clock. Basically, I wanted to come out, hit this hole. I've hit it a few times. I've extracted a few flatheads. I've extracted a flathead every time I've fished it. The basic point of the video is, if you are in a known flathead hole, man, fish that thing. Fish it night after night. Fish it going into the full moon. Fish it during the new moon, you know. Fish that thing. Because I've hooked a couple monster flatheads. I mean monsters. Both which I lost, both which swam me into something. They were just so powerful. But they were known flathead holes. And one of them I had to fish that hole for about 1.5 years before I hooked that fish. Another one I fished for about a whole spring. And I just happened to get there on the nights when that big thing come out of hiding, man, and found my bait. But that's how you do it. Not all of them's going to get away from me. But if you're in a known flathead area, one that holds a good number of them, go ahead and fish that thing, man. Like I say, I just move around due to my videos. If it was up to me, I'd sit some of these holes and I'd fish them all the time, you know. So, just a little explanation on why it can be good to sit in one spot all the time. You know, these boat guys, they like to move around. They need an instant fish for a tournament or whatever. But flathead's a funny fish, people. If you want to really find out what's down there, work that hole. This was a video. There was a fish in the video. This is Catfish Dave with another one. Signing out.